righty, good morning. It is Saturday morning, maybe because it's Saturday you slept in, so maybe it's mid-morning now, or maybe even afternoon, who knows? It's a Saturday. So it is Saturday, February the 13th, and we conclude our John Stott devotions through the Sermon on the Mount. Today, the passage he suggests reading is Matthew chapter 7, Sermon on the Mount. Put all together, you'll find various other teachings scattered around in the other Gospels, but in Matthew, it's Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7, and today the reading is in Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 through 29. The verse that's given at the top for us is verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. The radical choice is the title of today's meditation. Jesus sets before us in the conclusion of the Sermon on the Mount the radical choice between obedience and disobedience. Not, of course, that we can be saved by our obedience, but that if we have truly been saved, we will show it by our obedience. Firstly, Jesus warns us of the danger of a merely verbal profession in verses 21 through 23. To be sure, a verbal profession is essential. Jesus is Lord is the earliest, shortest, simplest of all Christian creeds. But if it is not accompanied by personal submission to the lordship of Jesus, it is useless. We may even hear on the last day the terrible words of Jesus, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Find those words in verse 23. Secondly, Jesus warns us of the danger of a merely intellectual knowledge. Whereas the contrast in verses 21 through 23 was between saying and doing, the contrast now is between hearing and doing, verses 24 through 27. Jesus then illustrates it by his well-known parable of the two builders. It features a wise man who constructed his house on rock and a fool who could not be bothered with foundations and built his house on sand. As both got on with their building, a casual observer would not have noticed any difference between them, for the difference was in the foundations, and foundations are not seen. Only when a storm broke and battered both houses with great ferocity was the fatal difference revealed. In the same way, professing Christians, both the genuine and the spurious, look alike. Both appear to be building Christian lives. Both hear Christ's words. They go to church, read the Bible, and listen to sermons. But the deep foundations of their lives are hidden from view. Only the storm of adversity in this life and the storm of judgment on the last day will truly reveal who they are. The Sermon on the Mount ends on the solemn note of radical choice. There are only two ways, narrow and broad, and only two foundations, rock and sand. On which road are we traveling? On which foundation are we building? Searching questions from Jesus. Searching questions. I hope you've noticed in some of these meditations that the question is not what we look like, but what we really are. What's on the inside. It's easy. It's easy to go to church. It's easy to say a prayer. It's easy to put some money in the plate. It's easy to be a nice person sometimes. Easy to even be a good neighbor. But it doesn't mean we are the real deal. It just doesn't. Jesus makes that clear when he talked in chapter 6 about the Pharisees and how they do what they do for the applause of others. Oh, it's great stuff. But their motivation, that's the problem. There are those who name the name of Christ and do all those things we mentioned, and yet in their heart of hearts, they're still the boss. They're still Lord. And many of them, Jesus says, will come to him on that day of judgment and say, Lord, Lord, look at all the stuff we did. And he'll say, I never knew you. We never were in real relationship. You built on the sand, not the solid foundation. You claimed to be mine, and yet you did not obey. You did your own thing. It's challenging, but we need that searching. We need to be asked the hard questions. Teachers know that. If they only ask simple questions and the answers are simple, they really don't know how much their student has grasped of the principle of it. They really don't know, unless they ask the right kind of questions, how much their students grasp of the subject matter. And the same is true for Christians. Those who name the name of Christ, until they go through the tough stuff, until they're asked the hard questions, until the storm comes, it's hard to tell how much they really grasp, how much they really know about Jesus and have put their faith in him and truly made them Lord of their lives. To be searched is a good thing. To be given the tough news at times is necessary so that we know the course of action that needs to be taken. This isn't critical, this isn't judgmental, this is just reality. What path are you on? Who's in charge? Those are the questions to ask and answer as we live the life that Jesus paints in the Sermon on the Mount. Blessings to you today. If you've got the day off, if you're a Monday through Friday kind of person in your job, I pray you'll be able to take some time today and tomorrow on the Sabbath to be still, to listen, to allow the Word of God. I hope as I suggest these passages, you read them and you allow the Word of God to speak. Blessings to you today.